Some funerals pass quietly, like a whisper carried off by the wind. Others linger, not because of who is gone, but because of what is left behind. This one was never meant to be remembered. And yet no one who stood at Eleanor's grave that day would ever forget what happened. Not because of the prayers, not because of the tears, but because of the dog. He didn't bark, he didn't whimper, he just watched. Too still, too silent. And when the truth clawed its way to the surface, it wasn't the living who revealed it. It was him. The dog sat at the edge of the graveyard, its posture tense as it stared at the small group gathered for the funeral. Its coat, once shiny and healthy, now seemed matted with grief, as if it too had been affected by the loss of its beloved owner. The air was thick with the scent of earth and flowers, the kind that only a funeral could bring. Yet, amidst the somber atmosphere, something about the dog's stillness felt off, unnatural even. The mourners, cloaked in black, stood in small groups, whispering among themselves. They had come to pay their respects to Eleanor, a kind-hearted woman who had touched many lives. The priest, Father Caldwell, stood at the head of the grave, offering words of comfort, his voice smooth but carrying a heavy sorrow. The dog, however, did not seem to share in the communal sadness. Instead, it was alert, its ears pricked and eyes unblinking as it gazed toward the open grave. It had not made a sound since the service began, but its unsettling silence was more noticeable than any bark or whimper. Grace, one of Eleanor's closest friends, noticed the dog first. Her heart ached as she looked at it, recalling how it had been her companion in the past. Always by her side, as loyal as they come. She had known Shadow for years. "What's wrong with Shadow?" she whispered to herself, but the words felt empty as they left her lips. "Is something wrong?" Her voice broke through the soft murmur of the gathering, drawing several glances. Father Caldwell, who had been leading the service, turned his gaze to the dog. "Oh, Shadow," he murmured, making the sign of the cross. "It's just grief. Animals mourn just like we do. He needs time." But Grace wasn't sure. There was something else. Something in the way Shadow's eyes stayed fixed on the grave, in the stillness of his posture, the way he didn't waver. She had seen dogs grieve before, but this was different. It was as if Shadow knew something none of them did. The breeze picked up slightly, causing the leaves on the nearby trees to rustle. Shadow's fur rippled in the wind, but his eyes remained fixed. He stood up now, the muscles in his back taut, and took a few cautious steps forward. His growl was soft at first, almost imperceptible against the backdrop of Father Caldwell's prayer. Grace instinctively took a step toward the dog, concern etched across her face. "Shadow," she called gently, as if trying to calm him. "What is it, boy?" But Shadow didn't respond to her. Instead, his growl deepened, vibrating through his chest. The mourners shifted uneasily, exchanging glances. The atmosphere was beginning to feel uncomfortable, the air charged with something unspoken. "Father," Grace said, her voice tight with worry. "What's going on with him?" Father Caldwell seemed momentarily unsettled. He glanced at Shadow and then back to the casket, his brow furrowing. It's just grief," he repeated, though his voice lacked conviction. "The dog is mourning, nothing more." But Shadow wasn't settling down. If anything, his growl had grown sharper, cutting through the air, louder, more urgent. His paws clawed at the earth as he began to circle the grave, quicker now. His gaze remained fixed on the casket, as if guarding it from something unseen. His low, steady growls reverberated among the silent gravestones, sending a wave of unease through the mourners. "I'm not so sure, Father," said Daniel, one of Eleanor's close friends, who had been standing beside Grace. He stepped forward, eyes narrowing at the dog. Something's not right here. Father Caldwell shifted uneasily. Nonsense. Just a dog in distress. But Shadow wasn't just distressed. He was agitated, erratic. His behavior was becoming more erratic, his growls almost warning. There was an intensity to it that made Daniel's stomach tighten. "Maybe we should check the casket," Daniel said suddenly. His voice was calm, but there was an urgency in his eyes. "What?" Father Caldwell's voice cracked. "Why would we—" "Father," Daniel interrupted. "I think we need to look. The dog isn't just grieving. There's something more. Something isn't right." The air was thick now, charged with tension. The mourners, who had been whispering among themselves, began to murmur louder. Emily could feel the weight of their gazes upon her, waiting for her to speak up. She had been Eleanor's best friend, but she didn't feel as though she had control of the situation anymore. Not with the dog acting like this. "Fine," Father Caldwell snapped, his voice edged with impatience. "Let's put an end to this nonsense." His face flushed red as he strode toward the grave, signaling the workers to open the casket. The others gathered around, watching in uneasy silence. Shadow's growls continued, though they seemed to quiet as the lid was slowly lifted. A murmur rippled through the crowd as the casket opened. And then, silence. Not the solemn kind, but the sharp, stunned silence that follows when something is deeply, unmistakably wrong. It took only a heartbeat for Grace to understand. Her breath caught in her throat. Daniel leaned forward, blinking in disbelief. Even Father Caldwell stepped back, his lips parting, but no words came. It wasn't Eleanor. Inside the casket lay a man. He looked to be in his late 40s, face pale and waxen, mouth slightly open, as if caught in the middle of a final, unfinished word. His dark hair was disheveled. His hands rested stiffly on his chest, fingers curled unnaturally, as if they had not found peace in death. His eyes were wide open, staring, vacant, accusing. Grace staggered a step backward, her hand flying to her chest. Shadow, still tense at her side, did not bark. He didn't need to. His body was still, but every inch of him screamed. His eyes didn't leave the man in the coffin, and for a moment it seemed as if the dog had known all along. "This is wrong," his silence seemed to say. "This is not who we buried." A chill ran through the mourners like a creeping shadow. "That's not Eleanor," Daniel said finally, his voice low but steady. And with that one sentence, the illusion shattered. "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much." "Who is this?" There was a moment of stunned silence. The mourners shifted nervously, some stepping back from the open casket. Grace felt a chill run down her spine. She could feel the eyes of everyone on her, as if expecting an answer. "Father Caldwell?" Grace asked, her voice trembling. "What is this?" Father Caldwell stepped back, his hand trembling as he ran it through his hair. I don't know," he stammered. "I don't know who this is." "Why didn't you say anything?" Daniel demanded, his eyes now filled with anger and disbelief. "Why didn't you tell us?" Father Caldwell looked as though he might collapse under the pressure. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said weakly. "I couldn't." "You couldn't? What?" Grace cut in, her voice rising in anger. "Tell us the truth? That you had replaced Eleanor's body with someone else's?" The mourners stood frozen, stunned by the revelation. Shadow, still at Grace's side, seemed calmer now. The dog's posture had shifted. He no longer growled, but stood quietly, watching Father Caldwell intently. There was something in the dog's eyes, a warning, perhaps, but no one could quite decipher it. Father Caldwell shook his head, his face drawn and pale. "It wasn't supposed to go this way," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Eleanor was supposed to be buried properly, but there were complications. The body that was supposed to arrive never did. It vanished without a trace. I had to do something. I thought I could make it right." The crowd was silent, stunned into stillness. Even the wind seemed to pause. Shadow's eyes narrowed as he stared at Father Caldwell, every muscle in his body tense. Grace's heart pounded in her chest like a drum of war. The lies, the cover-up, the sense that something much darker had been hiding just beneath the surface all along. What else had Father Caldwell concealed? "Who are you, really?" Daniel demanded, stepping forward, fists clenched. "And why are we only now finding out that you've been hiding the truth all this time?" Shadow let out a final, low growl, his eyes twin daggers slicing through the priest's carefully held composure. Father Caldwell staggered back, visibly rattled, as if the full weight of the truth had just crashed down on him. "I didn't have a choice," he murmured, his voice cracking. "The family, Eleanor's family, they demanded a quick funeral. When the body was lost in transit, I panicked. I thought no one would notice. I just wanted to spare everyone the agony of waiting, of not knowing. I never imagined it would come to this." He swallowed hard, his gaze shifting from face to face, hoping for a trace of understanding, but finding only cold silence. "I didn't know what else to do," he said. "I thought I could carry this burden alone." A chilling silence followed his confession, deeper than before. Then, suddenly, the wind howled through the graveyard, rattling branches and shaking the gravestones as if nature itself was rising in protest. Grace turned slowly toward the casket, her eyes fixed on the face of the unfamiliar corpse lying within. Her voice came out like a breath of frost. "You replaced her," she whispered. "You buried a stranger in her place. But why? Why this man? Who is he?" Father Caldwell lowered his head, shame thick in his expression. "I don't know," he said. I didn't think I could risk losing her forever. The family was desperate. They needed closure. I thought if I could just get through the service, maybe the pain would end for them." "No," Grace said, stepping toward him, her voice steady and full of fire. "This is more than a mistake. This is a crime, Father. You've deceived everyone. You've buried someone else's body in place of our friend." His voice trembled now, on the edge of breaking. "It wasn't supposed to be this way," he repeated, almost to himself. "I was trying to protect them, protect you all. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now everything is falling apart, and I can't stop it." The crowd's murmurs swelled into an uneasy chorus, tinged with disbelief, anger, and the low thrum of fear. A few mourners stepped back instinctively, their eyes darting between the casket and the pale figure of Father Caldwell, whose hands trembled at his sides. Then, Shadow moved. Until that moment, the dog had been a silent sentinel, lingering at the edge like a ghost woven from memory. But now he stepped forward, each paw-fall deliberate, as if drawn by some force older than time. His gaze fixed on the casket, unblinking and wild, burning with a fire that seemed to still the wind itself. He raised his head slowly, and then it came, a long, mournful howl that shattered the hush like glass. It rose and twisted into the air, echoing off gravestones and trees, winding into the marrow of every person present. Grace felt it hit her like a wave, something primal, ancient, impossible to ignore. Her breath caught. The sound vibrated deep in her chest, not just with grief, but with a warning. All motion ceased. Even the birds had fallen silent. For one suspended moment, time itself held its breath. Shadow wasn't mourning anymore. He was remembering. He was revealing. And something in his howl seemed to awaken the very earth beneath their feet. The ground felt colder now, not from weather, but from some deeper truth finally beginning to stir. Father Caldwell swayed on his feet. His lips parted, but no words came at first. Just the thin rasp of a man choking on everything left unspoken. "I've made a terrible mistake," he finally said, barely more than a whisper. But everyone heard it, and Shadow, still tall, proud and unmoving, let out a low, guttural growl. It was the sound of judgment, not cruel, but certain. As the last of the mourners drifted away, casting nervous glances behind them, a strange stillness settled over the graveyard. It wasn't peace, it was anticipation, as if the land itself waited for something to rise. The grave that had been the center of whispered fears was now just another stone. But what it had hidden could no longer be ignored. Father Caldwell remained behind, hollow-eyed, the collar around his neck suddenly seeming too tight. Once a figure of authority and absolutes, he now looked like a man reduced to shadows and ash. He had tried to bury the truth, to protect his flock from a darkness he thought too heavy to bear. But the cost had been trust, and silence had done more damage than any truth ever could. And yet, in the quiet wreckage of that evening, it was Shadow who emerged as something far greater than anyone had understood. He was not just a dog. In his unwavering loyalty to Eleanor, in the countless nights spent watching over her grave, he had become a vessel of memory, of warning, of justice that no court could deliver. His howl had spoken what no human voice dared say. His presence alone had forced the truth into the light. Grace and Daniel stood together, still frozen in place, hearts pounding. The questions in their minds came faster than answers ever could. What had Eleanor endured? What had she discovered before her death? And how far had Father Caldwell gone to hide it? They knew this wasn't over. The truth, once awakened, doesn't return to sleep. It lingers. It spreads. It demands to be seen. As they walked away from the graveyard, the sky above them stretched vast and dark, studded with stars like watchful eyes. The wind carried the final remnants of Shadow's howl across the fields, a reminder that some stories refuse to end quietly. This night would echo in them forever. It would change how they looked at their town, at their past, at each other. Because the lesson of that day, delivered not by a priest, but by a dog, was this: the truth does not vanish when buried. It waits, it festers, and eventually it rises. One step at a time, one voice at a time. And those who dare to face it, though they may be shaken, walk forward, changed, stronger, wiser, more alive. And so, with heavy hearts and eyes wide open, Grace and Daniel took their first steps into a new story, one haunted by echoes but lit by the fire of truth. Did you enjoy this story? What do you think about the dog's behavior? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. The truth doesn't stay buried forever. Sometimes it takes a loyal heart to bring it to light. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.